And now we'll quickly move on to another interesting session, which is on Agentic AI, easing AI adoption for enterprises. Well, as you all know, artificial intelligence is no longer a futuristic concept. It's a necessity for businesses looking to scale and innovate. Agentic AI simplifies AI adoption, enabling enterprises to integrate smart solutions without extensive technical expertise. So this is definitely going to be a very interesting one. And the speaker for this session, ladies and gentlemen, let's quickly welcome Mr. Naren Kachroo, Head of AI Services at Google Cloud India, here on stage. Let's hear it a little louder for the gentleman.
Hi, good evening. Afternoon. It's tough. It's tough being one of the last speakers on a two-day conference and all of you eager to go home. So I appreciate all of you still staying in the room and bearing with me. I'll keep it short, keep it to 15 to 20 minutes. Unfortunately, the format today didn't allow me the use of my own laptop. Otherwise, I would have shown you a few really cool demos on what's happening in the world of generative AI. I don't know, is there a clicker here? Okay. Before I get to the topic of the day, which is Agentic AI, let me kind of tell you what the last 12 months was all about. And all of you know this, and I think the speaker before me also mentioned about this whole thing about AI and generative AI that took center stage in the last 12 to 18 months. It's the buzz everywhere. I can tell you one thing for sure to the audience in the room, that I still feel, and I have, I'm extremely fortunate and I have the privilege of being at the, at watching this from the ring fence on how this thing is evolving and how innovation is coming to technology. I can tell you that it is still an underappreciated moment in history that we are experiencing right now. The advent of generative AI specifically, and with this thing now that computer systems have human-like, even better, reasoning and understanding capabilities, is a very seminal and important moment in the history of humankind, I would say. Like if you looked at the various innovations that have happened in the history of humans, there will be very few such events and such moments in history, which will define an era. It will define an era of pre that event and post that event. I mean, take for example, electricity becoming common in our lives, industrial revolution and stuff like that. So I think this moment in time that we are living and experiencing right now in terms of generative AI and the ability of systems to think and understand and react as well as human intelligence is path-breaking and revolutionary. Till now, I think in the last, as I said, 18 to 12 to 18 months, the whole discussion has pivoted around generative AI, which is basically the ability now, this thing came up where we were now able to ask systems or computers questions which got us human-like responses, right? It was just not limited to like a sales answer or whatever. Like you could write a poem and it could do creative stuff and it could there were boundaries, there were barriers that got crossed. But I think this is now going to be the year for Agentic AI. And there is a difference between Agentic and generative AI. And I'll come to that on what the difference is. But let me see if I can play a small video for you. If it does come up on, no. Is there a way to click on this? I mean, is this playable or have we lost it or? Okay, if it is not, it is fine. It's a embedded YouTube video, and if it doesn't play, if the network isn't there.
Let's do some tests. Tell me when you see something that makes sound. I see a speaker, which makes sound.
What is that part of the speaker called?
That is the tweeter. It produces high frequency.
Okay, let's just pause it. That's okay. Can you go back to the presentation? Maybe I'll come back to this in a second. Maybe I'll move up a couple of slides. Okay. So let me tell you about agents first, and then I'll get to a quick demo, which I'll show you how the power of agents is coming to life. So the difference between a generative AI application and an agent is not only the ability to think and reason, it's also now the power to act, right? To observe the world around you, and for these agents now to be super smart and take action on your behalf. So till now, all the applications and interventions that you saw of generative AI were primarily pivoted towards getting your human-like reasoning, whether it was single modal, multimodal, whatever. Now we are putting real-time in production systems, real-time workflows where actions previously taken by humans or previously complex or hard to achieve actions are now taken by Agentic AI, right? So let me sort of try this, and I'm trying it real time. So not sure if demo gods are going to agree with me, but nevertheless, we'll give it a shot. Can you give me a handheld mic, please?
Weren't something you got into because you wanted to change the world.
Hi.
Okay, I see a stage being set up with a few people
fantastic.
sitting
Hold on. Hey, can you look around the video and tell me what you're seeing right now?
Sure. I see a large room set up for an event with many round tables and chairs. There are
cool.
people seated at the tables, and the lighting is bright with some spotlights. It looks like a conference or a presentation.
Oh, fantastic. Can you tell me what you can see on the screen right now?
Certainly. The screen says Observe, Act, Achieve at the top. Below that it reads, an AI agent is an application that tries to achieve a goal by observing the world and acting upon it, using the tools it has at its disposal. The words application, observing.
Cool. Do you agree with that statement?
As a large language model, I don't have personal opinions or beliefs, so I cannot agree or disagree with statements.
Okay.
However,
in the room that you're seeing, can you take a fair guess on how many people are present in the room right now? I lost network. Okay, you're back. Can you tell me how many people do you think are in the room right now?
Certainly, let's estimate that. It looks like there are around 70 to 80 people in the room.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. The point that I was trying to make with this quick demo of live screen recorded multimodal input into a large language model means that this model is now fully ready for agentic behavior. It is not only taking the insights, it's also the ability now for models to observe the environment around them, right? And to use the capabilities of the pre-trained large language model to give you an enhanced experience in terms of workflows is now possible. It is now ready. It is ready for prime time, right? That is the power of agentic AI that we are experiencing today. So just for those who are technical in the room, right, a non-agentic application, which was the generative AI standard application. So it's very clear to understand what is not an agentic application, right? So if you have a large language model or if you have an application trained on few short examples or even a RAG setup behind it, right? It is not an agentic application. An agentic application is one where you put the agent front and center into doing an action on your behalf, right? This is our view of how an agent architecture looks like. An agent architecture obviously has a model that does reasoning for you. In our case, it's the Gemini models, which are the state-of-the-art multimodal large language models with the largest context window of any model available today. Happy to announce that just yesterday we announced Gemini 2.0 to become generally available. Gemini 2.0 is the most advanced, most sophisticated large language model that is out there. It has a context window of 1 million multimodal tokens. 1 million multimodal tokens translates to roughly 1 hour of video feed that can be fed into this model at one shot. Our closest competitors are at 128K input token size, right? That translates to roughly 4 minutes of video. So that's how far the gap is between what Google is doing in terms of both context windows and multimodality and what our competitors are doing. So there's a model underneath that does the reasoning activity. An agentic architecture has tools where these tools fetch data through API calls or data stores that you connect to this system, right? It could be API calls, it could be data stores. What we are also doing in Google is we are also making some of the Google assets now available to agentic interventions. For example, one of the things that we have done uniquely is connect Google search as part of our agentic architecture. So now, if there is, for example, in financial services, if you want to do, I heard a very interesting case, small loans to Kirana shop owners and you know, in that banking ecosystem where you give small loans or overdraft facility to Kirana shop owners based on what is the inventory that they have in their shop at that particular point of time. What is the fair value inventory of the stuff that they have in their shop? How do you do a determination of the fair value or what is the value of the assets that are in the shop, right? One of the things that we have been able to do is take a video input or take a video stream of that entire shop, take all the inventory, and typically what would a human do? A human would go to Google and search for the prices of various items, right? So, Ashirwad atta ke 5 packet pade, what is the fair price on that through a Google search? We have integrated Google search natively into this architecture and you can ground your answers with Google search. We are also expanding it to ground your answers with, you know, third-party APIs. For example, we have a data tie-up with Moody's and Thomson Reuters. We also are now planning to extend the Google ecosystem. We'll allow for, in a few quarters, grounding with even Google Maps, for example, right? That gives your agents this superpower of being able to look at Google and being able to look at Google assets or third-party assets, including your own first-party data, to make this agent a really super powerful entity in your organization. The third thing is this whole orchestration layer, which is basically agents talking to agents, right? Let me spend a minute on that. How many of you are in organizations that have contact centers? That have call centers, contact centers, or you have used contact centers? Let me get a few more hands up. Like you have dialed a 1-800 number to lodge a issue. When you dial a 1-800 number or a toll-free number or a contact center number, what is the first thing that you hear in that call? This is a recorded line. Anything you say, you know, all this discussion will be recorded for training and quality assurance purposes. What do you think is the industry average of the number of calls that are actually analyzed for quality purposes? What do you think is the industry average? Of all the calls that are made, what is the percentage that gets? Yeah, it's 5 to 7% is the industry average. That means as organizations who are running a contact center, right, today, don't have the capability to get user insights from 95% of their customer interactions. Imagine the kind of value that is lost there. You have the lowest paid employee running your contact center because the cost of the call itself, and you cannot have a supervisor behind every contact center agent because that just wouldn't be cost effective. Now imagine in an agentic situation how that will work. So we will have a few agents to help the contact center experience become better. So let's, for example, I mean, it can go to the extent that the agent itself will handle the call and manage the call. But let's for a second assume that you still have a human managing that call, right? You still have a human engaging with the end customer, but you're recording that session, right? The first thing is we'll create an agent that will be sort of a supervisor agent. And to that supervisor agent, you will give a few tools. The tools will be, grounding on your data, SOPs, etc. The other things that you have to look for. So based on that SOP and the truth data that's coming from your systems, that supervisor agent on that call recording will be able to determine how well the call went, right? There could be different parameters that you could set up, like, did the caller greet the person well? Was there an upsell opportunity that got missed? Was there a cross-sell opportunity that got missed? So all of that will happen. Now this agent will, so for example, there's an agent that has not done so well, like the scores are low. What will happen? That agent needs to get trained, right? So in an orchestration layer, what will happen is that supervisor agent will then pass those parameters or those inputs and that toolkit to the training agent, which will now develop a very specific training plan, a very unique training plan for that contact center agent, right? So that is how the orchestration of agents in an organization is visualized and is going to happen. I know we are out of time, so I will quickly run through the slides. I just wanted to paint you a picture that we are thinking of this as a cloud, as a platform of connected agents. We are imagining that this world will be, these agents will continue to grow. These agents will continue to become more and more sophisticated. They will have better over a period of time as they learn in the system itself, and there is iterative modeling that happens on top of this. They will, become very powerful. What we are seeing right now with customers in India is that customer agents, employee agents, and I have a few slides on that, creative agents, basically all your marketing and creatives, basically like that's the number one use case we are seeing in Google at least right now. The ability to create very high fidelity marketing interventions, creatives, images, videos through VO and Imagine models is becoming extremely, extremely powerful. So I think some of those are already front and center today. Organizations are already using and already putting agentic behaviors in their production workflows. We have customers in the e-commerce space who have built catalog enhancement agents, who take catalog images. For example, we have a customer that does large-scale, it's a large-scale e-commerce, but their suppliers are from small shops and small towns and MSMEs who may not have that sophisticated tooling or video shooting ability to create very high fidelity, catalogs for their sarees or their, kurtis or their shirts, etc. Right? The ability for these agents to sit in that catalog workflow to enhance these images by several notches without having to spend a lot of money on photo shoots, etc., is real, is already being deployed. A lot of the catalogs that you will see, you will be extremely surprised on your e-commerce shops are being powered through agentic interventions. I have several slides and I'm not going to bore you with that, but I think the most important thing that we are seeing and the most critical nuance that we are seeing today is on employee productivity. And what we are seeing is that this whole agentic intervention that is happening and these agentic wave that's happening, the first thing that is happening is that it is powering internal employees and becoming assistants or agents who are, significantly enhancing productivity of the employee and of the workforce. And it's complex. Within a production like a B2C workflow, it's still easy to do. What's hard to do is internal to organizations, right? And the reason for that is the complex tooling that you have. Like any decent sized organization will have 90% of this stack as part of their enterprise setup. Like they'll have various analytics platform, they'll have SharePoint and Google Drive and different kinds of enterprise software that they need to deal with. So that's resulting in employee productivity getting severely challenged in terms of siloed data, not being able to search and not being productive across the board. And there were always enterprise search and enterprise discovery tools and enterprise data management that has been there for a while. It's not new. What has happened specifically with generative AI and specifically with agentic is that the context now, the context in which you are building these agents and the context that is held is now becoming extremely powerful, right? The ability for these tooling to understand your context and give you relevant information and help you in the creative process of relevant information is now possible because of generative AI. Pre this time, we did not have a mechanism to basically understand human intent as well as we do now, right? So what we have is a solution called Google Agent Space. I would not recommend all of you to go and test this out, but there is a specific feature in this that if I had the ability to show you a demo live, I would have been happy to. But there is a feature in Agent Space called Notebook LM. Anybody here who has used Notebook LM? One person? Nobody else? I would urge all of you today to go back home and try Notebook LM. notebooklm.google.com. It's available for consumers free of cost. For enterprise, it's part of Google Agent Space, and I'll tell you the distinction between the consumer version of Notebook LM and the enterprise version of Notebook LM. But Notebook LM was originally developed as a research agent tool by Google, right? So we do in Google a lot of research, right? We have a very rich research arm that does research on multiple things, including generative AI and all of that. And as a result of that research, we two Googlers got Nobel Prize this year. Anybody can guess in which field they would have got a Nobel Prize? No prizes for it, but medicine. Any other answers? Two Googlers, please don't Google it. Google will tell you the answer, but any guesses? So two folks from Google DeepMind, including the CEO of Google DeepMind, Dennis Hassabis, got the Nobel Prize for chemistry this year, in 2024. Why chemistry? It's because of the path-breaking work that these two gentlemen did on AlphaFold, which is a model to do 3D protein detection and all known proteins in the world. That problem, without AI and the work that DeepMind did, would have taken 1 billion years to solve, which we solved in a year, right? So that is the impact of AI. Anyways, back to my original premise. Sorry, I got drifted. And this is my last slide, and I'll stop after that. Notebook LM was a tool basically designed for research. So think of it in an organization where you have a lot of documents. For example, those of you who are in credit risk, for example, right? If you have like tons of credit risk documents, some companies' annual reports, statements, call recordings, lot of internal research, feeds from third party, all of that you have to research to make a determination whether that loan is risk worthy or risk averse, right? You would have to spend a lot of time. What Notebook LM does is it allows you to now put those documents in the tool and then ground your experience on the tool through that one experience. So different people like to research differently. Some people like to, are more visual learners, so they will want to like do summary notes and some people like more question and answer. So the tool automatically gives you, like it creates, multiple choice questions, it gives you answers. So it adapts to the way you want to learn that topic or do research on that topic and deeper research. It also gives you an out-of-the-box chat experience to now interact with that set of documents in a chat format. The coolest thing about Notebook LM, which your kids are going to love, every single person that I spoke to, and those of them who gave Notebook LM in the hands of their kids, is that of the content that you put on Notebook LM, it automatically within 2 or 3 minutes creates a podcast. It's a two-person communication in absolutely human-like conversational voice of two people talking and discussing that topic in a podcast fashion. So modern learners are also auditory learners, and our newer generation kids like to learn through podcasts and stuff. Notebook LM enables that. So this agentic intervention, like this one single agentic intervention, has now powered you to basically this being an assistant to you to research a topic in the way you want. The difference that I said between the consumer version, as you go and see this tool later in the day, Notebook LM, and what's available in the enterprise version, is one big thing. In the enterprise version, on that podcast, as it is playing, you can intercept that podcast and become a third person in that podcast, asking questions to the two experts on that area, right? So what has happened is the two people talking, which is basically the agentic podcast agents who have now become experts on the content that you have given in Notebook LM, you can intercept that discussion and say, hey, I don't want to know this, because the podcast is like pre-created and pre-curated for you. But if you want to get to a specific topic, you now have the ability to intercept that communication and intercept that podcast and ask a question, which will then be replied in voice output, in human-like voice output immediately. So that is how we are imagining these agents and agentic interventions to power the enterprise, to power human lives, and to become meaningful in our day-to-day operations, as we call it, right? I had a few more slides, but I think I'll stop here. I know I'm between you and the close of business. Happy to take a few questions if you have. I'm sorry we couldn't play the videos that I had on the slide, but happy to take. We'll take the questions offline. Even better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. It was a very, very interesting session. Thank you. And of course, we'd love to acknowledge and appreciate you being here. So requesting Vikrant sir to kindly present the memento. Thank you. Thank you once again.